I think all these guys get drafted in sequential order of how they get going. Typically, not always, but typically the higher picks are usually the better players. We really don't care. We're just looking for guys that fit us and fit our system. Obviously, the offensive skill position guys, we're always looking for guys that can score touchdowns, make big plays. So to us, those are the most important. Well, we don't ever change our evaluation on pass defense. We're always looking for certain traits for each of these guys, the traits that we feel like fit into our system. The third corner or nickelback or whatever you want to say is really a much more valued position, as you say now. You're playing 70% of the time. Same with the third receiver, whereas some of the linebackers are probably not as valued as much because of the personnel that they're seeing. So, but we look for a certain trait for those guys, and I've always felt like you can never have too many corners. Guys that have value that can move inside, move outside, go from there. Yeah, I think when I first got in the league, everybody said the nickelbacks or the slot corners would be undersized corners, so they automatically put them in this nick category, and we kind of did that when I first got here, but we kind of away from it. Good, how you doing, Butch? Well, there's prototype for positions. They don't all have to meet prototype. Obviously you have a couple there in Cincinnati, but a guy like for us, Everson Griffin, right? Everson is a 6'2.5", 6'3" guy, strong, physical, great acceleration to get off the ball, but strong. And our defensive line coaches done a great job of coaching him and teaching him. And then, there's other guys that are the 6'5", 6'6" guys who, I like length and speed. So I don't think there's any one. I mean, there's a lot of great players in the league. There are great rushers that are 6'2.5", and 260, 265. But they all have the power, leverage, the get off speed, being able to have long arm or beat the guy around the corner. No, I don't think so at all. I think, that's one of the things about college football that just, and again, going back to the nickel position, even a lot of these 3-4 teams end up being 4 down as soon as you go to nickel. So, but in college, there's a lot of 4 down defensive linemen that show up quite a bit. Yeah, well, we're looking at all positions. One of the things we have to be very careful about, I think, with us is that we have been good on defense the last few years, but we don't ever want to slight that side of the ball. We want to make sure that continues to be a strength for us and add to some other sides. So when we get down to it, we're going to try to figure out the best player that we can pick wherever it is. It might be another corner or something like that, but we have to be able to do that. Now, obviously, we're going to look very hard at the offensive line there. We're going to look in free agency and all these places to fill holes, but I just want to be extremely careful that we don't rob Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, there's a lot of things. I'm very fortunate to have a terrific defensive line coach, but a lot of times these guys, when they get off the ball, they raise up. So, and depending on their height, especially, They don't really understand about using their inside hand as much, so it's a lot about that stuff. The get off, how important the angle of the get off. We have Donnell Hunter, who was the guy we drafted third round, and he's had 15 or somebody sacks, the last 2 years or something like that, maybe more. Anyway, but he was a guy that when he rushed in college, always rushed like this, and I think he had 1 sack in college. Now he's learning the angles of how to rush, the leverage of where to be on the offensive tackle, and then the other attributes coming off. He was another guy that there was a guy in Cincinnati too that was like that, but they raise up a lot. So even they might run 4.5, but because they're coming up like this, they're 4.6 now, and it just slows the progress down. But yeah, there's a lot of things that these guys have to overcome. You mean when we made the trade? Well, a little bit of that. I mean, the familiarity always helps. I think anytime you're bringing somebody in from another team, the more you know the guy, the more chance you have of being correct. And I don't know if what Rick said, because I don't pay attention to what he talks about, but I know at the time we made the trade, we felt like we had a really good football team, and that this guy would have a chance to help us moving forward. So I think, and then Pat being around and knew him, and we all sat in and evaluated him. So it was really the right decision. Well, it's an interesting question, and I'm going to preface it by saying, to me, in college football, the guys that come to the NFL, there's 3 positions that really make it more difficult for guys to come in and play right away, at least the way we ask them to play. So, like Mackenzie Alexander, he's a corner. He's a very, very talented guy. But the rules in the NFL are so different than college football. So this guy comes in and he can't play bump and run all through phase 2, all through the OTAs. He can't even do it the first 2 days of training camp. And so now he's catching up, trying to learn the rules of playing bump and run. So consequently, he gets a lot of penalties and goes from there. So the player development in that position and the offensive line and then the quarterback, but the offensive line is so much different now. Those 2 positions take a lot longer. So one of the things we're trying to do, and I'll get to Treadwell in a minute, but one of the things we're trying to do is really look at the player development side of things, on how we as coaches, how myself as the organization can help develop these players quicker than some of what we did. And then with Treadwell, he's an extremely conscientious kid that works really hard. He has been nagged a little bit with this ankle, and so he's just a guy that has to get better. I feel good about it. Chad Greenway. Well, I've talked to Chad, and he's still in the process of making that decision. I think obviously he'll want to get it done, that decision done before the free agency period starts. Yeah, well, he's a guy that I rely on an awful lot. I'll ask him about the locker room and different areas, things I can do better. I was actually really fortunate this offseason. I had probably, I guess, it's good and bad, but I had a lot of the players come in and talk to me about, they say, hey, Coach, we want you to be the best head coach you can be. Here's some things that might help you the way you handle things. Not necessarily the schematic things. But and when Chad came in, I asked him. I said, "What can I do better? How can I?" Some of these situations came up. How could I handle it better? So, that's one area that a guy like him can really help me. Also, carrying my message in the locker room, making sure guys are being accountable to one another. I think that's a big thing of what goes on with the football team is accountability to one another. Where's Hagan? How come you didn't say that? Oh. Well, one of the things I think that we do good with our players, and we try to be as fair as we possibly can to them. We allow these guys to go out. When there's a situation like this, we allow these guys to go out and test the market, let them find out what their worth is, and then try to figure out the situation how we can it can be beneficial to both sides. Adrian's a guy that has not ever been a free agent. So I think it's a good chance for him to go out and test the market and see what his value is. But I think he understands there's also a big benefit in finishing your career with one team. I've been around a lot of players that have done both, finished their career with one team and also gone on to another team for a year or two. And so, it really gives the players the opportunity to feel good about themselves, and I think it's good for us organizationally, and it sees that the players see that we're going to take care of them as well. Yeah, it's a good question. I'm kind of one of those guys that, and this is how I've done it in the past, is you sit down, you talk to them man to man, you sit down, you look them in the eye, you tell them your expectations of what you expect them to do, make sure they understand your expectations, and then, most of the time I'm the guy that if I feel like they're being honest with me and straightforward with me, then I'm going to have their back as well. So, I think that's the biggest thing for me. There's certain things that you kind of keep you way back off of things, and none of us are perfect. I'm certainly not perfect, So I do think that a lot of these guys learn. They're all young guys. They've had a lot of adulation throughout their sports careers, and so. But some things are